Good discussion. So this is about our last speaker, Jerrome, from Camera.
Switching. Very, very Captain. I'm going to present my study on prevalent glaucoma in India. Sorry, can you hear me now? Prevalence of glaucoma in India trends over 2 decades and future projections still 20. Okay. Uh, so this is my peak. You should thank them all and had good doctors who helped us throughout the process. So I should thank them and Mr. Krishnala sir, who I mentioned at the astronaut presented his first study on pseudoexfoliative glaucoma, which was done in Aravind 15 years ago in ISGEO. So now I got the opportunity to put all the results together and present it at this year. So big thanks to him. All right. So as we all know, glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness in 20 of preventable blindness among 50 procedures in the same year. And as ISGO defines it, it's a progressive optic neuropathy, which could cause structural damage to optic nerve, which will to associated visual weak X. It could either be associated linked with elevated aortic pressure or maybe not, and that is not included in the definition yet. So the global prevalence of glaucoma in 2020 is 3.5 per percentage. In 2013, uh, around 64 million people were affected with glaucoma. In 2020, it was 76, and then it increased to 111. And it is expected to increase to 111 by 2040. Global burden of disease estimates that in 2020, there were 3.6 million people who were blind, and MSPI was 4.13%. Very quickly about Asia, as we all know, how Asia hosting number of glaucoma cases, 60% and 76% of PAC. Uh, India and China carries the most burden. When it comes to India in 2020, India accounted for almost 20% of the cases, mainly POAG. Approximately 12 million were affected, and 1.2 million of those were blind, and which accounts to 5.5% of total blindness in India. 90% of the cases, it goes undiagnosed, mainly due to the asymptomatic nature of the disease. And when they get diagnosed, it is almost late, and when they have very significant vision loss, only then those cases are being identified. Uh, so coming to the gap, we thought as we started the working on a different paper, we thought prevalence of glaucoma, there should be one number available, but here we go. We didn't have that number, so we thought, why don't we put together something like that? And hence, this meta-analysis came through. The last one prevalence for India, it came from 2010. So it says 11.2 million people were affected with the disease. So there was lack of estimate for prevalence of India glaucoma as a whole. So we thought we'll put together this study. So this study, it consolidates the prevalence data from 2000 to 2020 based on the published studies, and then we projected the burden till 2050. The methodology as a standard meta-analysis, we registered our study with the Prospero, and we followed the PRISMA guidelines. We also did register with our ethics committee as well, so that someone will keep track of what we're doing. So eligibility criteria, we included all the population-based studies that published from 2000 to 2023. All studies that had each group greater than 40 years. We also included studies that presented glaucoma as a whole or a subgroup as well. We also included PX FG as well. Um, especially if the clinical diagnosis doesn't include any of these, and if it was self-reported glaucoma cases or a prevalent study, we did not include that. Or if it is a hospital-based study, we that also we did not include. Search strategy, we use three databases. Keywords. Along with these, we have a host of search strategy that will go along with this publication. Time frame, as I mentioned, from 2000 to 2023, and we also repeated it on September 24 as well, is to make sure that when we publish, there are no papers got published. And I mean, we included only papers that were published in English. So study selection, we use Ryan software. So two independent reviewers for all the process. We did the process, and there was third independent reviewer who acted as arbitrator in case of any disagreement. Prisma flowchart, I'll be presenting it later, and at the end we have included 13-week studies. So data extraction, we extracted all these variables: prevalence of glaucoma, subtype of glaucoma, and we also tried to present the prevalence based on the zones, which government of India they use in most of their publication. And along with this, we have also estimated blindness due to glaucoma. So I'll quickly run through this slide. We use risk of bias with the JBI 9-point checklist. Um, and the statistical analysis, we use the random effects model. Heterogeneity was assessed using I-square statistic. Subgroup analysis, we did it based on the gender zones, tickets of the publication, ISGO criteria, whether it was used for the disease identification, and the other subtype of the disease. We did meta-regression. We also did a leave out sensitivity analysis just to check any one study has more effect on the pooled outcome. And we did a publication bias to rule out whether all these publications had a publication bias. And at the end, this was very interesting exercise for us. The projection, we had census data available projection only till 2036. So we use a relative rate of change to project the population to, and then we created a linear model so that we can use that model to project it to 2050. And then we applied it for all glaucoma and blindness as well. So this is the flowchart, Prisma flowchart. We had uh, almost around 250 to 300, more than that. So we had 25 full text analyzed. We read them all completely and excluded 5 because they had insufficient data. And of the other remaining 20, excluded 5 studies because in our risk of bias analysis, we found it had high risk of bias, so we excluded them. And I have shown them here so that we know what are all the 5 studies we have excluded. And at the end, we included 15 studies. For the analysis, we used only 13, which I'll come to it. So this is the extraction sheet we had. We had extracted all these data, including subtype, gender, glaucoma prevalence, and then for blindness as well. Mm. What was the pipeline? Next is important slide. Yeah, there you go. Got this. So after getting into something which we are not familiar with, so at the end we found that prevalence of glaucoma in India as a whole is 3.23%, and so this is the distribution for the country. Um, so the pooled estimate is 3.23, which amounts to almost around 14 million people are affected with the disease. And if you include, take into account the 0.29% of people who are blind due to glaucoma. It is 1.26 or blind due to glaucoma in India, based on the studies that were reported. Uh, and based on habitation, there is a big difference. Urban uh, population, they had more prevalence compared to the rural, and both category it included studies that reported urban and rural population as a whole. So we just categorized them. And in terms of subtype, we could see that in India, POAG is highest. So we want to check the publication bias, as I mentioned, whether there is any significant publication bias in the publication of those articles that we have included, and we found there is no publication bias. Another interesting fact. So for uh, altogether, so here the prevalence will be a little bit different because this is from the linear model. So this matches close to the global prevalence. So the prevalence is 3.51, and it is expected to grow or move to 4.52 percentage by 2050. And in sheer numbers, by 2050, India will have 41 million people who are affected with glaucoma. And in terms of blindness, we kept blindness constant. Because we couldn't see a big difference in the EU model. Even then, we will have 2.6 million people will be blind due to glaucoma by 2040. I'm going to touch those subgroups. A lesson learned, because this is the first time we tried something like this. As a department, as a researcher, this was very interesting because I had to read a lot. Cochrane handbook. Now I could, if someone asks me, I could be I can battery it out because I had to read throughout that. So evidence gap for a simple prevalence data like glaucoma, which we would think that it would be out there, we couldn't be able to find. So keeping an open eye even for a simple disease or a prevalence stat, we might find a gap so that we could take up some studies like this. And in terms of inclusion, because in the absence of national level data or the evidence available, so we ourselves were had to be very stringent in terms of including articles, because we know once this get published, there will be some scrutiny. There will be a lot of interest in this. So we made sure that we YouTube on those articles which we found are eligible. And in terms of data extraction, there were several publications that had a primary. They used one primary data, but then they had several publications out of. Initially, when we started extraction, because we didn't know this whole process of meta-analysis, we just extracted everything, and then we had a pooled estimate. And luckily, our guide, he was able to point out that you do this, you'll be only underestimating the prevalence of glaucoma. So we had to go back. We checked, and we found that there were two studies of such nature, and so we included those two studies in the main data. Hence, you will find that I have included 15 studies from the Prisma chart, but we had only 13 studies included for the actual analysis. So in terms of risk of bias analysis, as I said, Cochrane collaboration, they have given extensive guidelines. The risk of bias, it doesn't only help as a researcher to understand the bias of that particular meta-analysis that we take through, but it also gives us a good guidelines about the whole research process and the methodology that we have to follow. After completing this study, any prospective study that I have been part of, I was able to make sure that all these checklists are being ticked so that we don't make some silly mistakes when we go for publication. Some reviewer have to point it out. So I'm going to quickly skip this slide. Uh, Conclusion: this is the first comprehensive evidence that we have for the prevalence of glaucoma in India, and so yeah. So we need to try and integrate and ensure availability of preventive and early detection strategies at all level of care, so that the disease could be identified at all levels, and if has to sent to secondary or the tertiary or further treatment that could be done. And one question for people who work a lot in RAB and for producer as well, that is it possible to add a glaucoma component or module in RAB so that we will have one actual data? Because what we had done now is we have collated 13 studies that was that I'd show that is not represented in a home country. So if we have something from RAB, if it is at all it is possible, we could also do that. And large studies are definitely the need of the hour. And if you have seen the zones that I've presented, we will see from North and Northeast India, there are no studies published here. So this meta-analysis doesn't include any data from North and Northeast. Hence, I thought any comprehensive primary data that could be collected that will actually feed to the further evidence creation. And always this finding will definitely help inform the national policies and resource allocation of further research. Thank you so much.